let's begin, shall we? With episode 1. So it starts with that hilarious bald guy scene that was released as a clip on their Instagram. And it was fucking hilarious, as always. And then Andy kills Tiffany, the doll, not the person. It's confusing, I know. And then all the Chuckies try to attack him, so he throws himself over a gorge along with the 72 that were in the truck with him. And supposedly he doesn't survive, even though, I mean, come on, it's Andy. They wouldn't just kill him off like that. More than likely he's still alive. And more than likely so is Kyle. Somehow. Plot armor. I don't know. And then we pick back up with Jake going to a new foster family, and he gives his boyfriend Devin one last kiss goodbye. It's adorable. I will always love that relationship, no matter how many hate comments it gets me in the comments section. And then we pick up 6 months later after that, where it's Halloween, and Jake is going out with his foster brother, Gary, as Batman and Robin, and he gets this phone call that turns out that's from Chucky, taunting him and talking about Tamara, who is a character from a past movie in the series, so a nice little Easter egg. And then he sees that he may or may not have broken into Lexi's home, so Devin calls 911, and Jake keeps an eye out. Or starts heading over, one of the two. It's not really clear. And then Lexi's having sex with some vampire guy. Like, he's really not important, so it doesn't matter. And then the cops break in right when they're about to start having sex. And she starts putting 2 and 2 together and realizes that Chucky may or may not have snuck into the house. And it also turns out she's a drug addict now, too. Because she's still traumatized from Chucky nearly killing her in the last season. Which reminds me, why didn't Chucky just kill her in the last season? I don't know, weird. Weird shit I'm not getting into right now. But, then it goes to Jake heading to Devin's. They reunite, and then they both go to Lexi's. Lexi checks this doll that Caroline ended up getting a therapist named Belle, who is obviously fucking Tiffany. I mean, come on. If Chucky learned how to split his soul, more than likely Tiffany learned it as well. And then it ends on this big dramatic moment where Chucky makes his grand re-entrance to the kids and holds them all hostage with a fertilizer bomb. Makes an Uber joke that actually works for me, surprisingly enough. And then Lexi ends up coming down the stairs after taking a bump of, more drugs, upper nose. And then Devin tases Chucky, but Gary runs off with the little fertilizer bomb and then somehow stops when he sees the Tiffany doll sitting at the table. It's a bit weird. And then Chucky kills him. I was not expecting them to introduce such a cute, likable kid and then just kill him off in the same episode. Nice little subversion of expectation, Don Mancini. And then the episode ends with them being sent to this remedial church, which turns out to be the childhood home of Charles Lee Ray. During the whole foster chapter of his life after he killed his mother, and that killer that made him the killer killed his dad. So, yeah, it's quite interesting to say the least. And now getting into my final verdict of the episode overall, I really liked it. I thought it was very well executed for what it did. And I'm excited to watch Season 2 now. Well, continue watching Season 2. I'm excited to watch Episode 2. So my final verdict for this episode is a strong 7 out of 10. It's definitely a very much a setup. Can't talk today. Very much a setup episode, but it's a pretty great one. And Baldhead Chucky is just a delight. Well, that was an episode. What's up, guys? Welcome to my episode 2, season 2, episode 2 review of the Chucky TV series. Only just a little bit ago, we took a look at episode 1. Now we're going to get straight into episode 2, and I'm going to get back on schedule and try and put these out every week, every Thursday. Because hopefully, Sci-Fi should keep uploading these episodes on their YouTube. So, let's dive in. So this episode opens where we left off, setting up this remedial Catholic school, and we meet this new character. I'm sorry, I already forget her name, but she's a redhead with glasses, and she's a very weird but interesting and quirky little character. I like her. And then we just get a little bit of a setup here and there, and then we get to our first actual part of the episode, where Chucky ends up causing another heart attack, in a reference to Child's Play 3 when he killed the sergeant in the same way. Which is weird, but you know what, it's okay. And I kind of like how demented he is. He's like, just the mere sight of me gives you a heart attack? Thank you. Evil bastard. Just an evil little bastard. And then they make a Harry Potter joke, and, shoot, what was her name? I'm blanking on all the names. Lexi, thank you. Lexi gets to meet up with her former tormentor, and she thinks that she'll get the advantage of, showing that she's above him, but then he turns out to be a Billy-like person. And by Billy, I mean like Billy from Stranger Things, where he is creepy as fuck. He is creepy, he is unsettling, and he is he is a something, I'll put it that way. Meanwhile, Tiffany Valentine, in the body of Jennifer Tilly, has Nika at this house since Charles Ray's little house blew up at the end of season 1. So she is at this house tending to Nika, and Nika's still trying to get her digs in at her, but she's really just ignoring her. And then here's my first evidence that that Andy actually survived the crash, because she wakes up in this new house, the first scene in this new house, she wakes up in the bed, and in the bed is the decapitated head of the doll from that gunshot that Andy shot. So my guess is that either Chucky put it there to fuck with her, or Andy somehow snuck in there when she was sleeping and stuffed that under her pillow. Well, under the covers, you know what I mean. And then we have Devin and Jake having to hide their relationship again, because Catholics do not like LGBTQ for whatever reason. I'm not a Catholic, so I wouldn't know. And then it goes on and on. She ends up getting this visit from this cop. And she finds a way to shoo him away the first time, and then the second time he has to come in the house because he's starting to put 2 and 2 together, realizing that Nika is in the house. So Tiffany, of course, slips his throat with a nail file. Again. But as soon as he does, that's when Glenn and Glenda show up. And she's trying really hard to try and hide this bloody mess that she made from slaying the cop's throat. And she can't. And right in the middle of her trying to clean it, they just walk through the door. Yeah. I'm still not a fan of what they're doing with Nika's character, taking off all her limbs and making her, like that, but she's still doing great as Chucky, as always, when she's possessed by Chucky, and she's still doing great. Fiona Dwarf is still doing great. I just wish that the character went in a different direction, but you know what, small nitpick. And then we get some more stuff about this remedial church, and we see more about this area, we get more of the classrooms, more of the layout of the place. And of course, Jake tries to take out Chucky. But the pastor, the lead minister, I'm going to call him, played by Devon Sawa, which is weird. Why the fuck is Devon Sawa playing 3 characters in one show? Are they, like, low on casting, or do they just not want to let Devon Sawa go? I don't know. It's weird. Like, first he was playing Jake's dad, then he played Jake's uncle, and now he's playing this head minister. Like, does Devon Sawa have a thing for playing assholes? Like, what is it? I don't get it. I really don't get it. It's weird. It is weird. And then Chucky ends up getting snuck into Lexi's room somehow, which clues in her roommate that this doll is indeed alive. So she's aware of it, and she's now pretty much friends with Lexi. Even though she says that they aren't, but they very clearly are. And again, I already like this really quirky character. If they kill her off in the next episode, I'm gonna be pissed. Because they worked so hard to try and make her actually likable. And then Jake and Devin find him in the bathroom, the Chucky doll, because he ends up finding a way to get the dresser unstuck just enough to slide through the door and down the hallway while the girls are screaming. And inadvertently, Lexi makes a diversion. And then Jake and Devin end up cornering him in the bathroom. He tries to get the jump on Jake, but thankfully Devin's there, boots his ass halfway across the room, which was funny as hell. This episode is funny as hell. It has some of the best Chucky moments. And they realize that they can just tie him up, because this Chucky is a scout, which means there's more than one Chucky that survived that crash. Well, more than 2, because the one from the last episode killed himself to kill Gary with that fertilizer bomb. So I don't know exactly where the series is going to go from here, but I am very excited to see where it's going to go. I do think this episode is about the same quality as the first one, around an 8. It's a bit confusing at times, but I like where it's going so far. But again, the Nika character, they need to fix that. Give her robotic limbs or something. Seriously, don't make her such a helpless spectator. This is a fucking awesome episode, plain and simple. But yes, I do think that them not having the Tiffany Glenda subplot in this episode is a bit weird, but it's alright. But it does have some very interesting developments. Like, we have Jake starting to believe in what he's being taught because it's being drilled in his head, which strains his relationship with Devin a little bit. But I'm sure it'll probably just end up getting resolved by the end of the season, so it's whatever. The bully and Lexi end up having their little cat and mouse game, which is very entertaining, as brief as it is. But the real star of this episode is Chucky. For one, we have him being tortured by excessive amounts of blood and gore until he finally pukes, which then reforms him into a legit good guy, and I like good guy Chucky, you know? He's just too cute because of the way he does his voice. The way Brad Dourif does the voice of this reformed good guy Chucky. It's just so cute. Like, I wish we had more episodes with good guy Chucky, but unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. And then we have the thing that everyone's losing their shit about on the internet. Big old roided, buffed out Chucky. I know people think that this is something just way too silly, but I love it, man. I can't help it. I love this roided out, buffed up Chucky who can literally throw full-size people across the fucking room. I don't know, it has a comedy to it that really makes it work for me. And then, of course, there's the kill of the episode. Well, there's 3 deaths in this episode, actually. The first one is a reverend who he ends up strangling in the confessional. it's simple, but it's whatever. But the second death is what makes this episode. The bully gets his just desserts when roided up Chucky throws his ass across the room, and then in a very amazing, bloody, gory death, probably the goriest of this entire show thus far, roided out Chucky punches the dude's fucking heart out of his chest. I had to rewind it so many times because I was so surprised. Because up to this point, the blood and gore was pretty minimal. In this season, not in the whole show. Don't even fucking start that shit in the comments. But, wow. What a fucking cool death for a character that could have been an evil piece of shit. And still was an evil piece of shit to a degree. And he was set up to be like this big antagonist, but then ends up getting Mortal Kombat to death, as 3C would put it. This episode's just fun. Like, I know a lot of people think Worried Out Chucky is a step too far, but I fucking love him. I love all the gory highlights we get in this episode, from the torture scene, going full Clockwork Orange, and the good guy Chucky is just an absolute delight. Seriously, this episode is just so entertaining, I didn't fucking care that it didn't have the Tiffany subplot. Like, I really didn't care. It's a damn good episode, plain and simple. And I'm hoping that it's only getting better from here. I don't know how many episodes are going to be in this season, but I'm excited to look at every single one of them. Well, that is it. Oh yeah, final verdict. 9 out of 10. Definitely my favorite episode of this season. Guys, I loved the last episode, but this was just weird. Now, granted, I think it's a cool setup. You know, having Glenn and Glenda now part of the main story, played by this great, seriously, this actress is doing a great job, seriously. You're doing a great job. Apologies, I'm not remembering your name right now. But you're doing great. And they finally separated Nika from Tiffany. And I really like the murder mystery sort of thing it has going for it in the main plot. And there is some twists and turns you wouldn't expect. But, this episode is just fine. Like, coming off of the awesome episode we got last time with episode 3, Hail Mary, this was just not... Wait, it was called Hail Mary, right? Yep, Hail Mary. This episode was just not good. Like, it had a cool setup, and it's cool for those that know how intertwined the real-life actors are to the Chucky TV series, and the family members and the relatives and all that crazy shit. But for those of us who aren't that well-versed in that, we're just sitting there scratching our heads. And not to mention, there's a bunch of weird scenes in here, like, you have the one guy who tries to rape Tiffany, then you have another girl who is in love with Tiffany and starts doing this to her. I can't exactly explain it because I don't want to get flagged, but if you've seen the episode, you would know what I mean. I'll just call it the bedroom scene. One of the most bizarre things I've seen of any Chucky series, or of any Chucky anything, to be honest with you. Glenn and Glenda here are fantastic, and I do think that they are definitely a highlight of the episode. But the weird wraparound talk show segment with Chucky, I mean, it's funny for a few minutes and then it just gets old. And then they bring in WWE's Liv Taylor. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that she was featured on a Dead Meat episode of What's Your Favorite Scary Movie, where she talked about Child's Play. I could be wrong, I could be right, I'll double check my research on that. But the rest of the episode is just boring. I didn't really care about any of the other characters, and the way they're handling Tiffany, it's a mess, to say the least. It is an absolute and total mess. Now, there's some cool stuff in the episode, and I do think that the murder mystery itself is very well executed, and I'm glad that Kyle isn't dead. But, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know with this episode, man. I don't know. It was just a whole lot of convoluted bullshit, pretty much. And it sucks that the final Chucky episode we're looking at for 31 Days of Horror has to be this painfully mediocre farce. Like, at the beginning of the episode, Chucky said this was going to be a fan favorite episode. Well, that is some bullshit, because I don't know any fan that would be into this episode. And even the diehard Chucky fans, like 3C, said they were super mixed on it. I am also super mixed on it. It's an episode that just boggles my mind and leaves me confused. There's great moments in here, like seeing how different Glenn and Glenda actually are from each other, and seeing that how the twins help out Nika, which is a really nice touch, and the interaction with Nika Chucky, which is just a delight. But I don't know, man. The rest of it is just a bore. And I hate to say that, because I really like Jennifer Tilly, and I like the character they're going for here, but I think it's time to put this character aside and bring back in a different version of Tiffany, like the doll Tiffany. Because I bet you if Chucky learned how to split a soul, Tiffany probably did the same thing. It's weird. We had 2 episodes of having these 2 plots playing simultaneously, and then we have 1 episode dedicated to each one. And one is significantly better than the other. It's weird, man. It's weird, it's convoluted, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. This is a short review, short, sweet, and to the point, because I have nothing else to say. My final verdict for this is a dead average 5 out of 10. Well, it's dead average. Oh. Talk about making a complete 180 from the last episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Cinepasane 77, and as you can see, we're talking Chucky today, because it's time to talk about Episode 5, which just came out yesterday. Episode 5 of Chucky is a great turnaround from the abysmal mediocrity we got in the last episode. And this episode is full of twists, full of turns, and full of a lot of crazy things. So I want to make this as vague as possible, and I don't even want to talk about the ending or any of that, because you guys just need to see it for yourself. But I'll tell you one secret. Bald-headed Chucky is still alive. That's all I'm saying. I'm just going to say bald-headed Chucky. But I will talk about the twist with Tiffany. So, yeah, let's just dive in, shall we? So, this episode, Tiffany ends up in this back room, where she is unintentionally discovered by Jennifer Tilly's real sister, as well as her daughter. Well, May. Her child. And it turns out that she still has Jennifer Tilly trapped in the same Tiffany doll from Seed of Chucky. And she's been keeping this doll in this cage for 10 years. And she kills Jennifer's sister right in front of her. My lord, that is fucked up. And if that wasn't already crazy enough, it also turns out that she still has the Glenn doll. And the twins actually start feeling like they need to be reunited into this one being. Because they have this weird, this empty feeling inside of them. At least that's the way I find a way to put it. And the rest of the episode is great, too. We get some great stuff with Good Guy Chucky, with also crucifying Buff Boy Chucky against the door, which is a really funny joke that happens when Father Merrin walks into the room. And then we also see her name? Damn it. I'm sorry, I literally just finished, so I'm trying to remember everything. Lexi, thank you. Lexi about to, have more drugs, and then this new character stops her. I still am blanking on her name, and I'm sorry. Talking about how it was the same thing that happened to her mom, and that she ended up dying of an overdose, which is realistic and dark. And after a lot of coaxing, Lexi is able to be driven away from the drugs, at least for now, and her and this new girl end up becoming closer and closer friends with each other. I think her name was, Valerie? Something like that? Fuck, I don't remember. But yeah, the reason why to watch this episode is the twists and turns with Tiffany and the return of Baldhead Chucky. I will not say why he returns. I'll just say he returns, because this is an episode you just need to see for yourself. Seriously. Final verdict for this episode, 9 out of 10. One of the best episodes of the season, and we only have 3 more to go. So, hopefully they end it on a very satisfying note, while also still leaving the door open for a 3rd season. Because I want more of this. I love this series, and while I have been critical of some of it, specifically episode 4, that's really just a minor nitpick across this massive expanse that is the Chucky TV series. And not to mention, it actually got me interested in watching sci-fi again, so thank you, Chucky. What's up, guys? I'm a little bit stuffy, so apologies if I sniffle or cough. But, I have seen the newest episode of Chucky, and I think it's really good, not quite great. It has a few problems. But it's not nearly as painfully average as episode 4. That episode remains the worst of the season thus far, in my personal opinion. So, last episode we found out the reveal of the therapist being connected to Chucky and his plot. And we also found out that the Colonel is Baldhead Chucky, and he has been holding Andy captive. And this is when the series starts to get really dark and twisted, because the Colonel, I'm just going to keep calling him the Colonel, even though I think Baldhead Chucky is a funnier name. But there's no funny business about this guy, man. He has been torturing Andy, Apocalypse Now style, and has been literally torturing him and eating his leg. Like, oh man. So, Devin and Lexi, I believe, managed to save Andy after the therapist and the Colonel leave to go back to the school. And the school, thanks to head priest Father Bryce, I guess I'll call him, he's put in lockdown because he's had enough of these shenanigans. So, he puts it in lockdown, and then we start getting our first little hint that this good guy Chucky is not a good guy at all, and it's just been a farce. Because he kills a fly with a dart that goes straight through the wall, and Devin and Jake see that he didn't vomit that time. And then he acts all innocent like he did nothing wrong. But I want to fast forward to the actual end of the episode. This is another episode that focuses exclusively on this plot in the remedial church school. How this is going to tie back in with Tiffany and that whole thing, we'll see later. Well, we get one little reveal of that in this episode, but it's really just one scene, so I'm not really counting it as a part of that thing. You know what I mean. It's not like a full actual segment that connects to what's going on. It still feels like 2 completely separate stories. So we find out this therapist has been, was the one that turned Charles Lee Ray into a killer. That is, stupid. Like, you introduced this brand new character that was literally just introduced in the last season, and now out of nowhere you're saying that she's the reason why Chucky is the way that he is. That's a bit of a stretch. And then we come to the saddest part of the episode. Nadine, yes, I finally remembered her name, dies. Pretty gruesome, too. Because she gets trapped on the top of the church school with good guy Chucky. And then we finally get the reveal that this guy isn't a good guy at all. When he chucks Nadine out the window, and she dies breaking her back on one of those Jesus statues. And you know Devin or Lexi are going to be pissed at Jake, because Jake's the one that's been protecting this doll, and now it's just killed their new friend. Like, jeez. Like, jeez, man, it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, with Andy, they did manage to get Andy inside, but the problem is that since he's so weak and malnourished after being tortured for at least a year, he is overpowered by the therapist who captures him. Again. Well, what was the fucking point of breaking him out anyway if you're just gonna have him captured again? Fucking ridiculous. Yeah, the episode ends with Nadine's death, and Lexi having lost another person close to her. She lost Junior, and now she's lost Nadine, who's the one that helped her kick her drugs, at least for now. So, yeah, Jake's gonna have some explaining to do, and this may or may not result in a straight-up, full-on breakup of the group, which means one of them may or may not die. Who knows? But it's still a very good episode. There are some things about it that are total bullshit, like it has some inconsistency with the extent of Andy's injury to his leg, even though it's literally been eaten down to the fucking muscles in his leg. Like, come on. And it's not that hard to get right. Like, if your leg gets eaten down to the muscle, damn near the bone, you should not be able to walk. Like, period. And yes, I know a lot of people are probably pissed about Andy getting overpowered by the therapist, but again, he's malnourished, he's been tortured for months, and he has a severe injury to his leg. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you were in that situation, you would lose to an old lady as well. But, yeah, this is a really good episode. There's just some inconsistency. And not to mention, we still have no idea what Chucky's actual plot is in this season. Like, what's the plan here? But I feel like these final 2 episodes are going to explain it. But for this episode, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's really good, but it still has problems. Like, it still has some pretty big problems. And I can tell you right now, it's probably my favorite episode of the whole season. This episode is excellent. It does a great job building upon what all the other episodes have been leading up to. And while I still have some gripes with it, this is an easy 9 out of 10 episode. Easy. Easy, great episode. So let's just dive right in. So, in this episode, we have an exorcism with Chucky being removed from the good guy doll that turns out to actually be good and having a little glitch when it killed Nadine. And they decided to do an exorcism to get that soul out of that doll. That way they can put Chucky inside of Nika into this doll, and then they can finally kill him off. So they have this really big convoluted plan. Of course, there's the moments when there's mourning of Nadine's death, especially from Lexi, who starts relapsing, but then sees Nadine, who's kind of her guardian angel, I guess, and then she tells her it's okay, don't relapse, and just, keep doing what you do, pretty much. And then it's a really sweet scene. I can't really explain it in detail because it's a bit hard to do. I literally just finished watching it not even half an hour ago. And it's a sweet scene. I'm just going to say it's a really sweet scene. And yes, I am sad that Nadine had to die, but you know what? They gave her a nice send-off, and the actress, from what I've seen, is an absolute delight of a person. For those of you that still like this actress and want to follow what she does next, I will put her Instagram in the description box below, so you guys can keep up with that. So, they have the exorcism. We get a little homage to Silence of the Lambs with Chucky wearing this Hannibal Lecter-like mask over his face. And then this is also the scene where all the characters all meet up together. Like you have good guy Chucky, you have the Chucky inside of Nika, you have Nika, Glenn, Glenda, Tiffany inside Jennifer Tilly's body, Kyle, Andy, Jake, Devin, Lexi, and Father Bryce. And they all come together to do this exorcism. And the exorcism kinda goes well, but it has a few kinks. For one, when they exorcise the soul out of the doll, it ends up going into Father Bryce. And he starts doing the Chucky laugh and being very maniacal. But then he unexpectedly explodes in a huge amount of blood and gore. Definitely the best Devin Sawa death in the series. And then they finally get Chucky out of Nika. And then as soon as it's out of Nika, Jake goes to drown it in holy water, which burns Chucky since, he's the most evil son of a bitch. That is until the priest lady, the one who's been thinking Chucky is a god and has been worshipping him as such, fuck, I can't talk today, comes in, holds Lexi hostage, even though I think Lexi should have been able to fight her way out of that one. So Jake lets Chucky go, and then Chucky repays this nun by killing her by shooting her eye out. Classic Chucky. And then Chucky tries to get away, only for Andy to be the one to shoot him to death. And there's a really gnarly part when Chucky gets his entire jaw shot off, and it's just the top teeth and his tongue. It's disturbing and morbid, but my God, is it an awesome death. And then the doll gets shot to death. And then they have all those moments. Well, actually, Glenda's in the church, and then Glenn is with Jennifer Tilly. Well, Tiffany. And we also get a bit of a sad part in this episode, because the Jennifer Tilly that's stuck in the Tiffany doll, or the Belle doll, as they call it in this case, she dies. We got the nice breathing sigh of relief that she was still alive and just being held captive and tortured for who knows how long. But then she ends up getting hit and absolutely splattered by a semi-truck, pretty much making that entire part a complete waste. Real shame there. Real shame. So then, Jennifer Tilly, well, Tiffany in Jennifer Tilly's body, excuse me, they arrive at the house right as Nika is freed, and then Nika gets ready to take her revenge on Tiffany for cutting all her limbs off. And then Glenn takes the bullet. So you pretty much know what that means. To save her life, Glenn has to go back into the doll body. Now what I'm wondering when they do that in the next episode is if we will have the original voice actor for Glenn return, or if it's just going to be the current new actor, or actress, excuse me, for Glenn just doing an impression. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And what's also really interesting about the finale of this season that's coming up It's going to be a Christmas episode on Thanksgiving. Capitalism much? No, really. Like, it's weird and interesting, but it's also kind of funny. And they already had a teaser at the end with Chucky coming down the chimney with a chainsaw and a Santa hat. Like, that's just instantly iconic already. I haven't even seen the episode. We're not going to be seeing it until, again, Thanksgiving. But this episode's fantastic. I already said it was a 9 out of 10, and I already give it a high recommendation. So, I don't know what else to say. Fantastic episode. Very bloody and gory, and it is a delight from start to finish. Great episode. So I know this review is late, but I had to gather my thoughts because I have a decent bit to say. As far as a finale goes for this season, I think it's crap. As a holiday-themed episode of Chucky, I think it's okay. As a Chucky episode overall, it's okay. But this is not supposed to be just another Chucky episode. It's supposed to be the big finale. And I give them credit that they got all the super crazy stuff out of the way in the last episode. And the last episode was amazing because of all of that. But this one's a bit more low-key. This one's a bit more of a wind down, and then it comes back up for a weird climax. So it turns out that the Chucky ended up going into the body of therapist, and they do the whole swap, and the therapist dies, and that's that. And then everyone else is all celebrating Christmas. Jake and Devin are trying to amend their relationship, even though it is very much on the rocks. And meanwhile, Chucky comes back in a badass way with the quietest chainsaw known to man. Finally kills the stupid fucking mayor character. Seriously, that was the worst. That was one of the worst characters in the show, and I'm glad she finally got what she deserved after being an idiot for 2 seasons. And Lexi got a great moment, and I'm finally turned around her character. And yes, I think the execution of writing Glenn out of the show, supposedly, is really good. It was really cool to see his original voice actor come back, as I predicted on the last episode. Billy Boyd does a great job, and I like the new look of Glenn in this episode. I didn't think he had a bad design in the original Seed of Chucky, but I don't know, I just like this one more. So they go off to England, and then Chucky invades the house, and then kills the mayor, and probably one of the coolest deaths of the entire season. Yeah, I think Don Mancini definitely watched Terrifier to get inspiration for this kill. And then Lexi gets her moment and chainsaws that Chucky doll right in half. And then there's the stupid reveal that Caroline is now evil and is going to be a protege to Chucky and Tiffany. Why? Like, why? Why? It wasn't set up at all. It was fucking brought in out of nowhere. It's fucking stupid, okay? Plain and simple. Fucking stupid. And then there's the ending, where it turns out this Belle doll was just Chucky and Drag the whole time. Like, what? You honestly expect me to believe that? And then it ends with us thinking that Tiffany... Well, it wants us to think that he kills Tiffany, finally. But of course that's not going to happen, because Don Mancini loves Jennifer Tilly too much to just outright write her out of the show. But we still don't know what the whole plan of this entire season was. We don't know what Chucky's plan was. We don't know what happened at the bus crash. We don't know. There's so many fucking stupid plot holes that it really does bog this season down to the point where I think it is worse than season 1. It's not outright terrible, but I'm disappointed. I was really hoping that we get something amazing for season 2 of Chucky, and we didn't. We got something really good, but it has a shit ton of problems. So my final verdict for the episode itself is a 6, but thinking of it as a finale knocks it down to a 5. And then the entire season 2 overall, it's a 7. It should have been so much better than it was, but it's a 7. It is a 7 out of 10. It's a very good season, but I'm not really sure it has that same rewatch value as the first one. There's great kills in here, sure, but what the fuck was Chucky's plan this whole time? It's still never explained, and it's dumb. And all the seated Chucky-isms don't help.
We cannot take it anymore. The time has come to cut from